Stay tuned for the Driver Life BODcast with Hope Zvara right here on tncradio.live.
Hello, everybody. This is Todd Dewey from the hit show Ice Road Truckers on the History Channel. And my source of radio and all truckers news, I go to tncradio.live.
Hello, and welcome. Woo, I'm excited. Are you excited? You might not know what you're excited for, but you're going to be, I assure you. I'm Hope Zvara, and I'm the host of the new show, the Driver Life BODcast on tncradio.live. Here we discuss the physical side of your health, from your feet to the foods you eat, from cellular health to how your cell phone affects your health, from how you move to improving your sleep. We cover it all here on the Driver Life BODcast. I believe it's the small, simple changes that lead to the big results in your life so that you can feel good again. I am honored to become a part of TNC Radio and be coming to you all Monday night, every Monday night, with tips, strategies, techniques, and tools for you to add to your toolbox when it comes to your health. Because let's be honest, without your health, what do you have? And this is my very first episode. We're kicking it off. And throughout the year, through every single Monday, let's say, I'll be bringing on various guests to talk about various topics. But today, I wanted to focus in on why your health matters. I wanted to have a discussion with you personally about why you should invest in your health. You may have seen a lot of the advertisements and a lot of the things looming about in trucking, but also just on the interweb, talking about the importance of health, mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. And that's really what these Monday night shows are all about, is about you improving all aspects of your health. And on the Driver Life BODcast, I focus a lot on the physical side of your health. And for those of you that don't know me, my name again is Hope Zvara, and I am the CEO of Mother Trucker Yoga. We've been in the trucking world for a little over 4 years, helping drivers change lanes in their health and wellness, in their health and fitness, one small, simple change at a time. And for me, when I think about what health means, when I think about the importance of health and fitness and wellness, it's not an option. It's not something that I'll get to later. And if you've ever been at the bottom of a septic tank in life, if you've ever been, if you ever hit rock bottom, you know what I'm talking about. And for me, I'm a recovering addict. I've been in recovery, struggled to get into recovery for about 10 years or so. And I struggled with an eating disorder, a wide variety of eating disorders, and drugs and alcohol and cutting, and struggled a lot with the mental health side, anxiety, depression, OCD, just lots of different things were plaguing me. And it was kind of a snowball effect. And if you're struggling with your health on any level, that's often what happens, right? It's one thing and we don't pay attention to it and we don't do something with it, and it slowly accumulates. It's like the lint trap in the dryer, right? Like you put your clothes in there and it dries it. And if you don't clean it out after a load or two, like it starts to accumulate and it starts to spill out on what's inside. And that's what happened to my life and me for many, many years. I was struggling with addiction and depression and anxiety, and just wasn't finding the right resources to help me get out of that hell that I was living in. And I began to think that this is how my life is going to be. This is all there is. Did the therapy route, doctors and weigh-ins and all sorts of stuff. And I don't think my parents ever gave up on me, but they definitely felt like they didn't know what else to do for me. And maybe you're at a point in your life right now where you're like, I don't know what else to do for me. And I've been there and I understand that. And along the way of trying to step into recovery, and I think we're all recovering from something, right? I stumbled across yoga. I was working as a lifeguard at the time. I was in my late teens, and one of my colleagues, my work colleagues, looked at me and said, "You look like somebody that would practice yoga." And truth be told, I don't even think I knew what yoga was. And that was probably the first time that I had ever even heard the word. Something in me just tricked. And I went home and was like, "Hey, mom," because I was living at home at the time, "I think I want to practice yoga." And she was really supportive and was like, "Okay, great, let's do it." And my Wednesday night yoga class became my weekly ritual of second chances. I still remember the first time I walked out of the door of that yoga class. And I'm talking like I went to a gym to take a yoga class. I call it gym rat yoga. The lady had a weekend certification. It was nothing fancy by any means. But I walked out of the door that first class and I looked back in with my yoga mat rolled under my arm. And for the first time in as long as I can remember, my mind was clear. There was no racing thoughts. There was no, thinking I'm dumb, stupid, fat, ugly. You can't do this. You're a nobody. Nobody likes you. You never amount to anything. None of those thoughts roaming through my mind that are typically racing from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And for that window of time, I felt nothing and everything simultaneously. I had experienced hope for the first time in my life in years. Now, I didn't know what I was doing. I was shaking. I was breathing in when she told me to breathe out. My left was my right. And I was younger than the majority of people, by half my age. And I felt out of place, but in the right place all at the same time. And so I kept coming back. And I felt like every single time I came back, I had more and more confidence that maybe this wasn't how my life was going to be. Maybe I could turn my life around. Maybe I won't be the girl branded, on her forehead, addiction, eating disorder, lost cause, maybe I'm not going to be that person. And it was a slow journey. And eventually I became a yoga teacher. My teacher said, "You look like somebody that would teach yoga. Have you ever thought about that, Hope?" And at the time I was going to college because that's what you do. And that's what I was told to do, even though I knew that that wasn't where I belonged, but I didn't really feel like I had another option. And something in me just tricked. And I went home, and at the time the internet was not as useful as it is now. And I found somewhere online and applied, and I went. And the next thing I know, I'm living in the mountains in Colorado for a month taking a yoga teacher training. And I think at that time, yoga more for me was about me getting well than necessarily helping other people get well. I started to build my toolbox of real tools, real resources, real strategies that worked. And through this process, and I think this is what maybe makes me a little bit different with what I do now, instead of learning something that I have never experienced firsthand, instead of trying to understand what it's like to struggle, to have health issues, to have challenges, I was simultaneously learning about the body, about the mind, about the spirit, about health, about wellness, and at the same time, trying to apply it to my own life because I was struggling. And so as I'm taking in this information, I'm taking in this data, I'm taking in this knowledge, it became very clear to me that the way we're typically taught doesn't work for the majority of people, especially if you are ill, if you are sick, if you are not the status quo. And as I started teaching and eventually I opened up my own yoga studio here, I live in a small town in southern Wisconsin, southeastern Wisconsin. It became very clear to me that there are a lot of other people struggling like I was. Now, they may not have an eating disorder and depression and anxiety like I did, but I think we're all struggling with something: body image, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, eating at night, over exercising, whatever it is. I think we all struggle with something. And I used to think that struggling the way that I did was an unfair punishment, especially at a young age. And now I feel like it's been a gift because I have insight in a way that very few people do in the position that I'm in. And I eventually opened a state approved yoga school here in Wisconsin, and I was teaching teachers. And through that process, I recognized that a lot of people don't care. They don't care about the whys and the hows and the actual person. I mean, they do, but not at the level that I felt it was essential to learn. Most people just wanted the certification, can't you do your training in 2 weeks? Can't you do this in a weekend? Like, how's the fastest we can get trained? And I'm like, it's like going into a heart surgeon and saying, hey, how quick can you do this heart surgery? And it's like, oh, well, I just watched a video on it yesterday. I should be good to go. I mean, you'd never do that, right? But here we are in the fitness world, not given, two hoots about where someone's knowledge and credibility and insight came from, because you can study all the books you want, right? You can read all the information you want, but it really comes down to, how they're applying it. And I think that has been huge for me in understanding more about real people's problems, real people just like you that are struggling, that are trying to figure this thing out called health. And so along the way, I opened a studio, opened a school, and just kind of felt like I was not serving people the way that I wanted to. And I'm a faith-based person, and so I was like, God, please show me a sign about where I belong. Show me a group of people that want what I have to offer. And trucking just falls into my lap. I go to a local business mixer here in my small hometown, and my husband's in local politics, and he's like, you should come along. And I was like, no. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. So I show up at this thing, and I start talking with this guy I'd never met before. And I'm trying to teach him corporate yoga because that's probably what I did at the time. And he looks at me and says, do you have anything for truck drivers in the cab of their truck? And I think I'm funny sometimes. And I threw up my hands and I said, Mother Trucker Yoga. Just trying to get a rise out of this guy. And he looks at me and says, that's brilliant. You want to go into business together? And we shook on it. The next morning he called me up. And next thing we know, 4 months later, we built a business from scratch called Mother Trucker Yoga. And a year later, I bought him out of the business. And I bought him out of the business because, well, I think this was meant for me. I think this is what I needed him to just kind of validate the concept and help me move forward. But I think this was my gift, and this is how I can give my gift back to all of you. And so here we are 4 years later, helping drivers and companies and CDL schools, just like yourselves, move forward in their health and wellness with small, simple changes. And I'm really honored to be here on TNC Radio, because what a great way to be able to spread my message of hope and my message of simplicity. Because in my own life, and with working with thousands and thousands of people in pain over the last 20 years, and now hundreds of almost thousands of drivers one-on-one, but not a let alone platforms like this that I've worked on, it has become very clear to me that overcomplicating health is not the pathway to helping people. And it's funny because when I do start working with drivers and companies, usually they're kind of blown away with how simple my approach to health and wellness is. And I think a lot of times people are trying to sell complicated mousetraps for the simple sake of being complicated. But as somebody who has been at rock bottom in their health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it wasn't the big complicated processes. It wasn't the Iron Man approach. It was these like small foundational pillars done repeatedly over a season that really started to create change for me. And the number one question I get asked is, Hope, how did you step into recovery and now stay in recovery at the level of health and wellness and longevity you are at, without medication, without, all of that other stuff looming over your head? And I think it all comes back to yoga. It all comes back to this, this understanding of being present in my body and facing, the issues I have going on. But it's also, I think, the approach that I've taken personally in breaking things down, in being able to just take little bite-sized pieces and apply them to my life consistently over time. Because going to one yoga class in your life is going to do jack crap. And, working out 5 days a week for 1 week, 1 month even, is going to do very little to nothing over the course of your life. Promising yourself all these changes you're going to make. I'm going to eat gluten-free. I'm not going to eat sugar. I'm never going to drink coffee again. I'm never going to touch a soda ever a day in my life again. I'm only going to eat organic, whatever it is. We've heard all of it. It's so unrealistic and unhealthy, in my opinion. There is such thing called healthorexia, where the obsession with being healthy ends up strangling your life. And I've been on that side of the spectrum, where exercising 2+ hours a day, not eating anything with, anything in it really, living on supplements to the point where I'm probably eating more supplements than I am food. And I was miserable. And my whole purpose for all of you on the Driver Life BODcast is for you to come in contact with the right information, the right people, and the right approaches, broken down in the most simplistic way possible. Now, I'll do my very best on the show. Sometimes I get really smart people on stuff like this, and we'll help you break it down so it makes sense for you, so that you can take this and apply this to your life. But my goal is that you can take your health back. You can be in the driver's seat. You get to decide what the next step looks like. And I'll be here every step of the way cheering you on. We're going to take a short break, and I will be back right after a brief little intermission, and we'll continue this journey together in the first episode of the Driver Life BODcast. I'm your host, Hope Zvara. Stay tuned. I'll be back in a bit.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Do you have the TNCRadio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.live app today.
It's Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we're helping drivers as they travel life's highway. I love that. The spiritual side, drivers face a lot out on the road. Truckers Life Radio digs in on the spiritual and moral questions that drivers face on a daily basis. You don't want to miss it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
CDL Permit Test Study Tips for Truck Drivers. The CDL Permit Test is one of the most important tests you'll take in your trucking career. Drivers must pass the test to practice driving a semi-truck, bus, or any other vehicle that's over 26,000 pounds. Like any test, you need to study and take the necessary steps to get prepared. The CDL Permit Test covers a lot of information. Studying the entire 180-page CDL manual can be overwhelming and exhausting. Luckily, We have some CDL permit test study tips to help make the studying for the exam much less stressful. What is the CDL permit test? Just like you have to have a permit before obtaining a regular driver's license, you need to get a commercial learner's permit, a CLP, before you can earn your CDL. A CLP allows you to operate a commercial motor vehicle while under the supervision of a valid CDL holder. To get a CLP, you must first pass the CLP test. The CLP test is a 100-question written exam divided up into 3 sections: general knowledge, air brakes, and combination vehicles. CDL permit test study tips. The CDL permit covers a lot of information. Typically, a state CDL manual is over 180 pages long. If you want to pass, you'll need to allow yourself plenty of time to study and prepare. Trying to cram all the study material in a couple of days before the exam will not give you the best results. We suggest studying a little bit each day when you're alert and able to retain as much information as possible. Get your state's CDL handbook. Each state has its own CDL handbook that has answers to questions that are found on the CDL permit test. It's important to have the most up-to-date version of the handbook. Find out what to study. So you have your state's CDL handbook. Now it's time to study. The key to studying for the CDL permit test is to study smart, not hard. Finding out what is exactly on the exam is one way of studying smart. Take a practice test. Practice tests are a great way to show what you know and what you need to be studying. Also, taking a practice test can make you feel more familiar and confident, which will help you reduce anxiety on the day of the CDL permit test. In conclusion, studying for the CDL permit test may seem overwhelming at first, but establishing a good study routine will help you get prepared and reduce stress. Remember, know what's on the test. Focus on topics you're weak on, take a practice test, and have fun.
Hey drivers, did you hear music on tncradio.live that you really liked? Or maybe you heard us interview an author of a book you'd like to read or listen to. You can get the books, music, and other products you hear about by going to our website at www.tncradio.live and clicking on the shopping cart.
Hello and welcome back. You are listening to the Driver Life BODcast on tncradio.live. I'm your host, Hope Zvara. Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to be here with you all. This is my very first show on TNC Radio, and we focus all on your health, specifically your physical health. Monday nights are all about physical, spiritual, mental wellness, mental health, spiritual health, you name it, all that jazz. And on the Driver Life BODcast, we focus on your physical health. And that means that we talk about everything from food to your organs, to your feet, to exercise, to how the environment affects your overall health and wellness. You name it, we focus on it. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Hope Zvara, and I am the CEO and founder of Mother Trucker Yoga, where we help over-the-road truck drivers who are living sedentary lifestyles improve their health and wellness from the driver's seat, the sleeper, and right outside the rig in just minutes a day. And over the course of this show, every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be having on some amazing guests and experts talking about what it is that you can do to improve your health, improve your wellness, one small, simple change at a time. And for this very first show, I just want to encourage you all out there, if you're listening to this, to take inventory of where your health is currently. So much of our lives, we're told what to do, how to do it, and that we should care about something, or we shouldn't care about something. But really the key to improving our health, I don't even want to use the change, but improving, like the 2.0 version, is to know where you are. And earlier in the show, I was talking about how I'm a recovering addict. It's not something that I hide or I'm ashamed of. I'm proud of where I've come from and the hole I've dug myself out of. And if I can help someone else through my own journey, I am going to do that. I am going to do that. But it's through assessing where I was at in that point in time where I recognized, Hope, you have a problem. And you need to do something about it. You need to help yourself. And it was in that moment that I recognized that if I don't make changes now, I might not die tomorrow. I might not die 5 years from now, but it's going to be a very slow spiral down. And it was up to me to make changes. Now, I didn't have all the answers. I couldn't make them all myself, but I had to make that decision to stop being the victim and start being the victor in my own life, to start doing the hard things and to stop telling myself I couldn't do them simply because I've never done them. I'm going to say that again. I had to start telling myself that it's not that I couldn't do something just because it was hard or different. It really was because I wouldn't do something. And so maybe you're at that place right now where you see this big mountain in front of you and you're like, oh, it's too hard. I'll never be able to change. Exercise on the truck, that's complicated. Or eat healthy. Like, I can't do that. I'm a truck driver. Take care of myself. Like, that's impossible. I have to drive all day. Like, we all are there in some way, shape, or form. If you're not a truck driver, maybe you're a school teacher, an accountant, or a plumber. My dad was a sewer pipe layer, and he had a really hard job and a really hard life. And he paid the price for it. He's 60, almost 65 now. And he has a body that doesn't do what he wants it to do because he didn't take care of it, because he didn't think that the human law, physical law, I don't know what we can call it, but that just life didn't apply to him, that he could be the strongest man on the planet just for the rest of his life and beat his body up. And sadly, he was mistaken. And so now he's assessing where he's at in his life and recognizing that there are things that he can do despite the obstacles, despite the damage he's done, and despite his circumstances and his past. And I actually write a lot about that in my book, Trucking Yoga, Simple Fitness for the Long Haul. You can get it over on my website at mothertruckeryoga.com. And I talk about, on page 13, I have our little strategy, our little tip, and it's talking about dropping the excuses. It's time to drop the excuses as to why you can't do something. And I wrote in the book that when you assign blame to another, you lose some power and momentum to change those things for yourself. A part of your brain decides that it is not your responsibility, and you give up before you even try. You may not like your current situation, but you cannot change something you are first not aware of. And so assess today. Take inventory of your health, of your life, of your situation. And yeah, you might not like some of the things that you see. You might not like the reality looking back at you in the mirror. It was an ugly day when I saw myself in the mirror for the first time and I saw a walking corpse. I saw somebody that had dropped so deep and so far off the edge of reality that I was embarrassed to see that person in the mirror. I didn't know who that was anymore. But it was in that moment that I also was given a gift. That awareness that I cultivated in that moment when I saw myself, really for the first time in a really long time, that Hope, the only way out of here is up. You can't go any lower. And when I looked around myself, yeah, there were people in my life that loved me and supported me, but newsflash, no one is going to do it for you. No one is going to lose the weight for you. No one is going to eat the food for you. No one is going to get the extra sleep for you. No one is going to take care of your health, care more about your health than you. And so assess where you are today. Take inventory of what's really going on. It's like when you fill out your driver's license, I'm speaking probably more to women than men right now. But when you fill out your little card for your driver's license and you put your real weight, or do you put your weight that you were when you were 18? Do you put your real weight, or do you put the weight that in your mind you want to be next year? Like, assess where you are, own it, so that you can make the necessary and appropriate changes to move forward. Be realistic about where you are. And then, and only then, can we start to move forward and make changes. And that's the whole point of the show, the Driver Life Podcast here on TNC Radio, is to help you discover some simple strategies that you can implement into your life in tiny little doses so that you can create traction. There's a stat that 8% of New Year's resolutions don't happen. They're made, but then after 2 weeks, they're dropped. And I think the reason for that is we bite off more than we can chew. We haven't fully assessed where we really are. And then we think about implementing these things and they're like, whoa, that's a lot. And then we give up. We have this black or white, all or nothing thinking, and we put health in a box. We put exercise in a box. We put fitness, wellness, whatever it is, call it what you want. Okay. I don't really care. Call it what you want. We put it in a box and we put it on a shelf and we say, I only will access this at this time, in this place, when I'm at this place. And I've heard this for years, not just when I started in trucking 4 years ago. Dude, I've been in the health and wellness industry for more than 20 years, you guys. There is nothing I haven't seen or heard. Like, there is no special unicorn, I assure you. We're all dealing with the same stuff. It just looks a little different. But I think this idea that, I'll practice yoga when I get a little bit more flexible. I'll go to the gym when I lose a little bit of weight. I'll start walking outside when I get new shoes. It's always something. And my advice to you today is to start with anything right now. Assess your situation. What's your baseline? Like when you go to the doctor, they take your pulse, they take your vitals, your baseline. Like, where are you at right now? So we know where to go from here. Assess what's really going on. What's the number really on the scale? What pant size do you really wear? How much water are you really drinking? How much soda are you really consuming on a daily basis? How many cigarettes are you really smoking? How much sleep do you really need? And how much sleep are you really getting? How many candy bars do you eat? How much fast food are you really consuming? How many fruits and vegetables do you really eat on a daily basis? This isn't to shame anybody. Like, dude, I'm not perfect. I love me a kettle chip. I love me some guacamole and chips. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, you got it. And once in a while, I got a sweet tooth and I have to be gluten-free, but gluten-free cupcakes, man, I really want to eat the whole thing. Yes, please. And I do, because I don't believe in perfect. I believe in a process. And so assess where you're at, where you're truly at, and write it down. Look at it on paper. Look at yourself in the mirror. Be honest with yourself. This isn't to be upset with you. It's to go, well, this is where I'm at. And the only way is up. And my hope is every Monday night, you tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and you decide that you want to tune up. You want to go up. You want another simple strategy that you can apply to your life. You are ready to take action. You want to be the victor instead of the victim in your own life. And you recognize that fitness, health, and wellness no longer have to live in a box on a shelf. That you can take your life back. I don't care if you are an over-the-road truck driver, you're an Uber driver, you're an Amazon driver, or you're a commuter, or maybe you are at home. Your health matters. Your health matters. And I do believe that it's the small, simple changes that lead to the big results in your life so that you can keep on trucking, so you can keep on moving forward. And so every Monday night, I want to encourage you to tune in where we can do a little self-care check-in. You can grow your toolbox of simple strategies. You can assess where you're at so you know where you're going. And along the way, I hope to motivate you and inspire you and lead you down a journey so that you can live your best darn life, because you deserve it. You deserve to feel good again. You deserve to live in a body that does what you want it to do. You deserve to have everything that you want and desire. Join me every Monday night here on TNC Radio on the Driver Life Podcast, and let's get you the life that you deserve. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining me on my first ever show on TNC Radio. Tune in every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Driver Life Podcast. And don't forget, just before my show at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern Time is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Kortman, where he discusses the mental health and mental fitness side of your physical wellness, of your body, of your life. And then afterwards, stay on, because at 9 p.m. Eastern is Truckers Life Radio with your host, Ron Frazier. So you don't want to miss. Monday nights are packed, action-packed, talking all about your body, your mind, and your spirit, and how you can feel good again. I'll see you guys again. Thank you so much. This is Hope Zvara with the Driver Life Podcast on TNC Radio. Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On the show, Ron interviews guests to help inform professional drivers just like you about the importance of things like human trafficking to sex addiction, to how to overcome the impossible odds on the way to success. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.